I woke up to the sound of my phone buzzing like it had something urgent to say. Mother's Day. Of course. The calendar notification lit up on my screen as if I could ever forget. I lay in bed for a minute, staring at the ceiling, wondering what the hell I was supposed to do with today. Every year it's the same. Instagram posts of smiling mums holding babies, old photos scanned in and captioned with my queen, breakfast trays, bouquets, brunches, matching robes, and every year I scroll through it with a pit in my stomach. It's not that I don't have a mum. She's alive. She exists. She even texts sometimes, usually to correct something I've done or remind me to be more presentable. But I don't have that other kind of mum, the one who knows your favorite ice cream flavor without asking, who remembers the name of the boy who broke your heart in year 10, who notices when you're not okay, even if you haven't said a word. That kind of mum lives in other people's houses. She lived, for example, in Hannah's house. Hannah, my best friend since we were 9. Her mum, Mel, was everything mine wasn't. She laughed loud, asked real questions, remembered things I said even in passing. She called me love and hugged me without it feeling awkward. She once told me I felt like hers, like some bonus daughter life gave her. I remember that sentence like scripture. I never forgot how it made me feel, like I belonged somewhere. So, this morning, instead of sitting down to write some fake little tribute to the woman who gave birth to me, but never quite knew what to do with me, I posted a photo of Mel and me in her kitchen, arms wrapped around each other, flour on our cheeks, from a baking disaster. And I wrote, "Happy Mother's Day to the woman who showed me what a real mum looks like. Thank you for every warm meal, every ride home, every little hug when I needed it most. You didn't have to love me, but you did. And I'll never forget that." It was the truth. I didn't post it to start drama. I just wanted to honor the person who actually mothered me. But within 10 minutes, the comments started rolling in. Hannah commented with a string of hearts. Mel replied, "You'll always have a place in this home, sweetheart." A few friends DM'd me, saying they teared up. Then I saw it. Someone tagged my actual mum in the comments. My heart sank. I hadn't even thought about that, about how the internet makes private truth public, about how silence online says something and loud truth says even more. I stared at her name under the photo, tagged and glowing, and I could feel the storm clouds starting to gather. But I didn't delete the post. I closed the app, rolled over, and just stared at the wall. Let the day begin. By midday, I had 3 missed calls from her. My mother. No messages, no texts, just the calls. Like that was supposed to be enough to summon me. I didn't call back. I wasn't ready. I wasn't even sure if I'd ever be ready. I just sat on the edge of the bed, my phone face down next to me, trying to breathe through the sudden weight of guilt pressing against my ribs like a seatbelt locked too tight. I made tea. I didn't drink it. I paced around the flat. Picked up clothes that didn't need picking up, reorganized a spice rack that had no business being touched today. Anything to stop myself from overthinking it, from going back and reading the caption again, just to double check that I hadn't crossed some imaginary line between honest and cruel. But the truth is, I knew I hadn't. I'd said what I meant. It was never an attack. It was gratitude. Still, that didn't mean it wasn't going to be taken as one. By 2 p.m., my sister texted me. "Sarah, Mum saw your post. She's really upset." Followed by another one, 5 minutes later. "Sarah, why would you do that?" I didn't answer her either, because I didn't have the energy to explain something I'd been silently trying to say for years. Maybe they didn't see it. Maybe I'd done a good enough job pretending to be the good daughter, the polite one, the reliable one. Maybe the bar was so low, they thought me existing quietly in the background was proof of peace. But there wasn't peace. There was just history. Long, cold corridors of history that nobody wanted to walk through because it meant facing things they'd rather pretend didn't exist. Like how she never once showed up to a school play, or how she'd call me dramatic every time I cried, or how she always made me feel like a burden even when I tried so hard not to be. And still, part of me wanted to apologize. Isn't that messed up? That guilt sits in your throat like a splinter, even when you know you did nothing wrong. Opened my phone and hovered over her name in my contacts. just stared at it. Mum. No emoji, no heart, just mum. Bare, like our relationship. I didn't call. I put the phone down again. Instead, I opened Instagram. The post had over 100 likes now. A few more comments, one of them from Mel's sister. She adores you. We all do. Happy Mother's Day, sweetheart. I smiled. For a second, I let myself feel warm, safe, seen. But in the background, like a warning bell in the distance, I knew this wasn't over. Not even close. She showed up the next morning. No warning, no text. Just the sound of the buzzer jolting me awake at 9:14 a.m. I stared at the intercom, pillow creases still etched across my cheek, heart thumping before I even knew why. When I heard her voice crackle through the speaker, "It's me. I'm new." I could have pretended I wasn't home. I thought about it. For a full 30 seconds, I stood there barefoot, heart racing, deciding whether to ghost my own mother. But something in me said, "No more running." I buzzed her in. When I opened the door, she was already halfway down the hallway. No smile, no hug, just that tight, unreadable expression she'd always worn when something didn't go her way, but she was trying not to explode about it in public. Only this time, there was no audience to keep her in check. Just me and the truth she didn't want to hear. "I figured I should come by," she said, stepping inside like she owned the place. "Apparently," I muttered, but she ignored it. She didn't take her coat off, just stood in the middle of my living room like she was trying to find proof that I lived a worse life than she did. Spoiler alert, she didn't find it. It wasn't a mansion, but it was warm, clean, and mine. "I saw what you posted," she said finally. "That tribute." I nodded. I meant it. To someone else's mother, on Mother's Day. You stayed quiet. You don't think that was cruel? "Do you want the truth?" I asked. "Or just an apology?" That stunned her. She blinked like I'd slapped her, and I hadn't even raised my voice. "Is that what you think of me?" she whispered. "That I was a bad mother?" I looked down at my hands. "No. I think you were a mother who didn't know how to love the daughter she had." Silence, thick and awful. She sat down, finally. Down, but not like she was settling in. More like her knees couldn't hold her up anymore. Her voice was smaller when she spoke again. "You don't understand what I went through raising you, how hard things were." "I'm sure they were hard," I said, "but hard doesn't equal kind, and you weren't kind." There it was. The truth. Not shouted, not thrown, just laid down between us like a mirror. She didn't reply. She just stared at the rug, like maybe it held the right thing to say. For once, I didn't try to fill the silence. I let it sit. Let her feel what it was like to be left with nothing but the consequences of her own words. And honestly, it felt like the most honest conversation we'd ever had. She didn't stay long. I thought maybe she would try to argue, or deny it all like she usually did. But after a few awkward attempts at small talk, comments about the weather, a passive-aggressive remark about my minimalist furniture, she stood up and said, "Well, I won't keep you." She never asked if I had plans, never asked how I was really doing, just grabbed her bag, mumbled something about calling later, and walked out the door. And the second it closed behind her, I felt something snap. Not like a twig, quiet and small, more like a rope, stretched thin for years, finally giving way. The kind of snap that leaves you lighter, but also a little winded. I sat on my couch, just staring at the door, trying to figure out what the hell had just happened. Was that closure? Was it the beginning of a bigger fight? Or was it just her way of saying, "I saw what you did, and I want you to know I didn't like it, but I won't talk about it"? That was the thing with her. Everything was always unspoken. Her love, her rage, her judgment, it all came in coded language. A sigh, a slammed door, a raised eyebrow that told me I was too loud, too sensitive, too much. And I let it happen for years. I kept quiet. I tried to earn love that should have been unconditional. I thought of all the times I had needed her. When I cried after school because someone had bullied me. When I didn't get into my first choice for uni and felt like I'd failed at life. When I got my first period and was so confused because she never talked to me about anything remotely human, I thought of the birthday parties she skipped, the piano recital she forgot, the boyfriend she called a phase right before he broke my heart. And through all of that, I stayed. I hoped. I gave her version after version of myself, hoping one of them would be lovable enough. But that post, that tribute to someone else's mom, it wasn't about cruelty. It was about finally telling the truth, about finally choosing someone who had chosen me back, who had shown up for me when my own mother didn't. And maybe that stung. Maybe that humiliated her. But it wasn't revenge. It was release. The first time I felt free enough to say what I had swallowed for decades. And I knew, right then, that no matter what happened next, I wasn't going back to silence. Not for her, not for anyone. It didn't take long before the rest of the family got involved. My Aunt Sandra was the first to call, not even 5 hours after my mom left my place. She opened with, "Sweetheart, I don't want to get in the middle of things, but your mom's really upset." I nearly laughed. Of course she was. Because somehow, no matter what happened, she always managed to turn herself into the victim, the queen of quiet suffering, the martyr in a family she didn't even bother to show up for most of the time. I asked Sandra, "Did she tell you why?" A pause, a carefully measured breath. She said you made a post about someone else's mom on Mother's Day. That was it. No context, no acknowledgement of why I might have done it, no curiosity about what might have led me there. Just the headline served with a side of guilt. I could feel my throat tightening, that old panic creeping in, like I was 13 again, getting pulled into the kitchen for yet another lecture about how I embarrassed the family by wearing ripped jeans to church. "I did," I said, "because she deserved it." Sandra was silent for a beat. Then, cautiously, "I understand your mom isn't perfect, love, but family is still family. You could have just talked to her." Talked to her, as if I hadn't tried. As if every time I had opened my mouth to express even a shred of pain, my mother hadn't shut it down, shifted the blame, or made it about herself. I didn't say any of that. Instead, I asked, "Did she ever tell you about the time I didn't come home for Christmas when I was 19? Did she tell you why?" Sandra hesitated. "She said you were going through a phase, wanted to spend it with friends." "She threw out my journal," I said, "the one where I wrote about feeling alone. She said it was dramatic, and I was trying to make her look bad." There was silence on the line again. I wasn't trying to win Sandra over. I knew how the family worked. Closed ranks, whispered sympathies, but never too loudly. You could admit a flaw in someone, but only if you cushioned it with 3 compliments. First. Still, I think that story landed. I think maybe for a second she saw the edges of the truth. "All right," she finally said. "I didn't know that." "Yeah, most people don't." She offered to talk to my mom, to smooth things over, but I declined. "Let her be mad," I said. "She'll be fine." I didn't believe that, but I needed to say it. Because the truth was, I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know how far my mom would take this, or what kind of stories she'd start spinning. But I knew this much. I wasn't going to clean up her mess this time. Not with silence, not with apologies, not with another carefully crafted lie. I should have turned the comments off. That was my first thought when I woke up the next morning, phone buzzing like a dying bee against my nightstand. I had posted the tribute with no intention of going viral. It was just a moment, a personal, emotional thing. But by sunrise, it had been shared over 3,000 times, liked by strangers, commented on by people who knew me and people who didn't. Everyone had something to say. Some comments were beautiful, people who had similar stories. Women who said, "Thank you for saying what I never had the courage to." A girl wrote, "This healed something in me." Another, "My best friend's mom saved me too." But of course, there were the others. "She's still your mom, though. That's blood. This generation has no respect. Air your dirty laundry in private, not on Instagram." Some were clearly written by people who didn't know me, trolls fishing for outrage. But some came from my own circle, from mutuals, from girls I went to school with. And then, buried beneath a chain of newer comments, was one that made my chest tighten. Wow, guess I know where I stand. My mother, on her burner account, I recognized the phrasing. She always tried to sound distant when she was hurt, like pain gave her the right to moral superiority. But it was her. I knew it. And once I saw that, I saw the others too. Replies defending her. A woman from church. She was always so proud of you. A cousin I hadn't spoken to in years. This is cruel. I closed the app. I couldn't look anymore. My throat felt raw, like I'd swallowed something sharp. I wasn't ashamed. Not exactly, but I was tired. Of always having to explain myself. Of being expected to smile and hold my tongue while my mother got away with rewriting every story. I walked to the kitchen, boiled water, stared out the window while the kettle whined. I thought about deleting the post, not because it wasn't true, but because of the chaos it had unleashed. But then I thought of Emily's mum, of the way she used to keep a spare toothbrush for me, how she once drove 30 minutes just to bring me a packed lunch when I forgot mine, the way she hugged me like she meant it, not out of obligation, out of care. She deserved to be thanked, and I wasn't going to take that back. So I did the only thing that made sense in that moment. I picked up my phone, I opened a new post, and I wrote, "Not all mums are born to you. Some are found, and I stand by everything I said." I hit publish, and then I let the world deal with it. I was brushing my teeth when she called. The name flashed across my screen like a warning sign. Mum. I stared at it, my mouth still full of foam, my heart instantly thudding. It rang 4 times before I spat into the sink and picked up. Hello? Silence. But not the kind that means no one's there, the kind that means someone is, and they're trying not to explode. Then, "So that's how you see me." Her voice was calm. That calm that isn't actually calm, the kind that hides a storm behind every word. I didn't reply right away. I sat on the edge of the tub, toothbrush still in my hand like some kind of emotional support stick. "Mum, I always thought we were closer than that," she said, her voice suddenly sharp. "But you really had to broadcast. Your grievances to the world on Mother's Day of all days? It wasn't about you. It's literally about me." "No," I said, trying to keep my voice even. "It was about me, and what I needed to say. For me. You just didn't like how that looked." She scoffed. "And what does that mean, exactly?" I inhaled slowly. "It means that you always made everything about appearances. It was always, what will people think? Never, what does my daughter feel?" "Oh, please, don't make me out to be some villain. I gave you everything." "You gave me food and clothes and rides to school," I said, "but you never really saw me. You never asked if I was okay. You never even tried to know me." "You're being dramatic," she snapped. "You always were. Sensitive." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was so predictable. There it was again, the deflection, the minimizing, the guilt shift. "Mum," I said, quieter this time, "you don't get to control the narrative anymore. I've spent so many years trying to earn love that should have been freely given. And when someone finally gave it, when Emily's mum treated me like a daughter without conditions, it opened my eyes." Another silence. Then, bitterly, "So I guess I should be grateful she stepped in to do my job." "No," I said, standing up. "You should be asking yourself why. She had to." That landed, I could tell. The silence was heavier now. Real. "I didn't call to fight," she said eventually. I just wanted to understand why you hate me so much." And there it was. That word. Hate. As if calling out pain was equal to hatred. "I don't hate you," I said softly. "I just stopped pretending you were someone you're not." She didn't reply. The call ended a few seconds later. No goodbye, just silence and a click. And for once, I didn't cry. I spent the next few hours pacing around the house, too wound up to focus on anything. I didn't know what to feel. Guilt, anger, relief, maybe all of them. But I was exhausted. By the time I got a message from Emily asking if I was free to chat, I could already feel the weight lifting. I wasn't ready to talk to my mom again, but Emily was different. She always had been. We ended up FaceTiming, her face filling the screen almost instantly. She was sitting at the kitchen table, coffee in hand, looking every bit as calm as usual. "Hey," she said, smiling warmly. "You okay?" I took a deep breath and exhaled slowly. "I just got off the phone with my mum." Emily raised an eyebrow. "Yikes, how'd that go?" "Let's just say it wasn't exactly a heart-to-heart." She chuckled lightly. "I can imagine. So what happened?" I rubbed my eyes. "She's angry, really angry. I think she feels betrayed, but I don't know what to say to make it better. Part of me wants to explain why I did it. But then, another part of me doesn't care." "Good for you," Emily said, leaning back in her chair. "Seriously, you don't owe her an explanation for what you did. You've been carrying this weight around for years, and now you're finally speaking your truth. I'm proud of you." Her words caught me off guard. I hadn't expected validation, not from anyone, and especially not from Emily. But I needed it, more than I realized. "I don't know," I said, my voice soft. "I just don't know how to fix things with her. It feels like no matter what I do, it's never enough." "Maybe it's not about fixing things," Emily said thoughtfully. "Maybe it's about learning to be okay with things as they are. You're allowed to feel hurt, and you're allowed to stand up for yourself." I bit my lip, nodding slowly. It wasn't a revolutionary idea, but it felt like one in the moment. "I've been thinking about it a lot," I said, my gaze shifting to the window. "And I don't know if I can keep trying to be the perfect daughter anymore, not when it's been so one-sided." Emily's voice softened, her tone comforting. "You're not asking for the world. You're just asking for basic love and respect." I smiled, the knot in my stomach loosening a little. "Thanks, Em. I'm glad you're in my life." "I'm glad you're in mine," she said with a grin. "And hey, if your mom gets too much, I'll always be here for you." I smiled back, feeling something inside me shift. It wasn't an answer, and it wasn't a solution, but it was enough. For now. The next few days were a blur. I tried to avoid thinking about the conversation with Mum as much as possible. But, like a nagging itch, it always found its way back into my mind, each time worse than the last. I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to explode. Then came Sunday, the day of the family dinner. Mum had been pushing for it, like she always did, so I reluctantly agreed. It was supposed to be a peace offering of sorts, an attempt to patch things up. But I wasn't fooling anyone, least of all myself. I stood in front of the mirror that evening, my fingers brushing over the hem of my dress. I wasn't dressing up for anyone in particular, but there was something about the way Mum expected me to look, perfect, composed, the picture of the good daughter, that I couldn't shake off. I sighed, taking a long look at my reflection. I didn't know who I was anymore. When I arrived at the restaurant, the tension in the air was thick enough to cut with a knife. My parents were already sitting at the table, their eyes trained on me as I walked in. They didn't say anything at first, just stared. "Mum," I said, offering a weak smile. "Dad." Mum's lips tightened, her eyes narrowing slightly. "You're late." "I'm not late, Mum. I'm just on time," I muttered, sliding into the chair across from her. It was a habit now, the way I snapped at her, even when I didn't mean to. Dad cleared his throat, trying to keep the peace. "Let's just eat, yeah? No need for any more drama tonight." That was when the storm started to brew. Mum didn't waste time. "So, have you thought about our conversation?" Her voice was sharp, almost like a reprimand. I hesitated for a second, but then remembered Emily's words. I didn't need to fix this for her. I didn't even need her approval. It was time to stop pretending. "I've thought about it," I said slowly, my voice steady. And I still stand by what I did. It's not about you, Mum. It's about me. She opened her mouth to argue, but I didn't let her speak. It's not like I haven't been trying all these years. I've done everything you've asked. Of me, but at what point does it stop? At what point do I stop being a reflection of your expectations? There was a long pause. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his seat, but Mum's eyes didn't waver. Are you seriously saying this at dinner? She asked, her tone cold and calculated. I'm saying it because it's the truth, I replied, meeting her gaze. I can't keep being someone I'm not just to make you happy. Mum was silent, and I could almost see the battle raging inside her. She opened her mouth, but then closed it again, unsure of what to say. Dad cleared his throat again, breaking the silence. All right, let's not turn this into something it doesn't need to be. We're family. We'll get through this. But I could tell it wasn't over, not by a long shot. The rest of dinner passed in a tense silence. Mum and Dad barely spoke to each other, the only sound being the clinking of a silverware against plates. I couldn't look at them. Every time I did, it felt like I was betraying myself, like I was still trying to fit into a mold I never belonged in. Mum's disappointment hung heavy in the air, but there was something else too, something sharper. It was the unspoken truth that had been there all along. She didn't understand me, and maybe, just maybe, she didn't want to. I left dinner early. I couldn't bear to be in that suffocating atmosphere anymore, and Mum's cold glares were doing nothing for my nerves. I texted Emily as soon as I got home. Dinner was awful. It's like she didn't even hear me. Her reply came quickly. I'm sorry. I think you're making progress, though. You're standing up for yourself. That counts for something. I smiled at her message, grateful for her words, but they didn't quite reach me the way they should have. Something felt broken inside me, like I had crossed a line with my family that I couldn't undo. The next few days were a blur. Mum barely spoke to me. Dad tried to pretend like everything was normal, but I could tell he was walking on eggshells. I hated the silence. It was worse than the arguments, worse than the accusations. The silence felt like a weight on my chest, pressing down every time I tried to breathe. Emily was the only person who really got it. She would call or text or send me memes to distract me. She understood what I was going through, even though she had her own family issues. But with her, it was always different. She never tried to fix me, never asked me to be something I wasn't. With Emily, I could just be. But as much as I loved her for that, I couldn't escape the feeling that I was alone in this. It wasn't just about my relationship with Mum anymore. It was about who I was, what I had become, and how far I was willing to go to break free from the person I'd always been expected to be. I looked at my phone, hesitated for a moment, and then texted Mum. I'm sorry for the dinner, for the way things have been, but I can't keep pretending. I waited for what felt like hours, watching the little bubble that indicated she was typing. When the message finally came, it wasn't what I expected. I don't know who you are anymore. And just like that, the wall between us grew higher. The message sat there, haunting me. I don't know who you are anymore. It stung more than I cared to admit, even though I'd expected it. The truth was, I'd always known that things with Mum weren't normal. There was always a distance, a gap between us that I never quite understood. But reading that sentence, seeing the raw hurt in her words, made me realize just how far we had drifted. I threw my phone on the couch, unable to look at it any longer. The weight of it all felt too heavy. I didn't want to deal with her disappointment, but at the same time, I couldn't stand the thought of us never getting past this. I wasn't sure what I even wanted from her anymore. The next morning, I woke up to an unexpected knock on the door. It was Emily. Her face was drawn, like she hadn't slept in days. You okay? I asked, already knowing the answer. She shook, her head, her voice thick with emotion. No, I'm not, and neither are you. I invited her inside, but instead of sitting down, she paced around the room, her hands wringing together. I read your message, she said, her voice soft but determined. I know what she said to you, but you have to realize something. You're not the one who's wrong here. She's never understood you, not fully, and you can't keep trying to make her. I opened my mouth to argue, but she cut me off. I get it. You want her to love you the way she should, but some people just don't know how, and no matter how much you try, you're never going to get that from her. You've got to stop trying to prove something to her. I swallowed hard. Her words, hitting a nerve. Could I really stop trying? Could I just let go? Before I could respond, there was another knock at the door. This time, it was Mum. Her face was red, like she'd been crying, but her eyes were hard. The door swung open before I could even process it, and she stepped inside without waiting for an invitation. I need to talk to you, she said, her voice quiet but steely. I stood there, unsure what to say, but Emily stepped in between us. No, she said firmly. Not like this. Not until you're ready to listen. Mum glared at her, but Emily didn't back down. The tension in the room was suffocating. It felt like an explosive moment was just hanging in the air, waiting to go off. I'm not going to stand here and let you tear her down, Emily added, her tone unwavering. Not this time. Mum's face twisted in anger. You think you know everything, don't you? She spat. This isn't your family. I felt like the ground had shifted beneath me. Emily had always been my rock, but now she was in the middle of this, and I wasn't sure what was going to happen next. The silence stretched out, a battle of wills happening right in front of me. My family was fracturing, and I had no idea how to piece it back together. The silence in the room grew louder, every second thickening the tension between Mum and Emily. It felt like time had stopped, and I was standing in the middle of a battlefield, unsure which side I was meant to be on. I'm not trying to be the enemy, Emily said quietly, her eyes not leaving Mum's. I'm just trying to protect her. Mum scoffed, taking a step back as if she couldn't stand being in the same space as Emily. Protect her? By encouraging this nonsense? By feeding her lies? I took a deep breath, fighting the wave of frustration building in my chest. No. One is lying, Mum. This isn't about lies. This is about me. The words came out before I could stop them, and I instantly regretted them. But they were true. All I ever wanted was for her to see me, really see me. Not as the daughter she wished I could be, but as who I was. Imperfect, yes, but real. I just wanted her love, her acceptance. Why was that so hard to give? Mum's gaze softened for a fraction of a second, but she quickly hardened again. You think she's better than me, don't you? The accusation stung, and I didn't have an answer ready. I couldn't exactly say yes, even though in some ways I had always felt that Emily's family had given me the love and acceptance I couldn't get from her. But that wasn't what this was about. This wasn't a competition. I'm not trying to choose sides, I said, my voice trembling a little. But I can't keep pretending everything is fine when it's not. Emily placed a hand on my shoulder, her touch grounding me. You don't have to pretend anymore. You've done enough of that. Mum looked at us both, and for a moment, I saw something like pain flash in her eyes, something that resembled guilt, maybe even regret. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared, replaced with the same cold, distant expression that had always been there. She crossed her arms tightly over her chest, trying to protect herself from whatever was coming next. I don't know how to fix this, I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I don't know what to do. Mum's response came slowly, each word heavy with emotion. Maybe you don't have to fix anything. I looked at her, confused. What do you mean? She sighed deeply, her shoulders sagging as though the weight of years of unspoken things had finally caught up with her. Maybe I'm the one who's broken. Maybe I'm the one who can't give you what you need. Her words hit me like a blow, but I didn't know how to react. This was new. This was the first time she'd ever admitted that she might have been the one at fault. It didn't make everything okay, but for the first time in my life, I felt like she was finally acknowledging me as more than just her daughter. I never knew how to love you the way you needed, she continued, her voice fragile now, and I'm sorry for that. but I don't know if I can change. The truth hung in the air between us, a stark reality that neither of us had been willing to face until now. I wanted to believe her, but could I? I didn't know what to say. The words were stuck in my throat, tangled up with emotions I wasn't sure how to process. I had spent so many years wishing for this moment, this conversation where Mum would finally acknowledge the cracks in our relationship. But now that it was here, I wasn't sure I was ready for it. Emily squeezed my shoulder again, and I could feel the support in her touch, her silent understanding that I needed to navigate this on my own. But even with her there, I felt alone in the room with Mum, alone with the weight of all those years. Mum didn't look at me, her gaze fixed somewhere beyond me, as though she was searching for something she couldn't find. "I don't know how to fix this," she said again, her voice almost a whisper. "I don't know if I can. I've spent so many years pretending that everything was fine, that I was fine." There was a moment where I considered walking away, taking Emily's hand and leaving, never looking back. But that wasn't me anymore. That wasn't the person I had become. I had spent so long living in the shadow of what I wished my relationship with Mum could be that I had almost forgotten who I was without her. It was time to stop hiding behind the walls we had built around each other. It was time to speak the truth, no matter how painful it was. "Mum," I began, my voice shaking but steady. "I don't need you to fix anything. I just need you to be real with me. For once. I need you to tell me the truth about why things are the way they are. Why you never really tried. Why you kept me at arm's length." Her face tightened at my words, and I saw the defensive wall go up again. She wasn't ready for this. She wasn't ready to face herself, and I wasn't sure I was ready to hear what came next. "I didn't know how," she admitted, the words spilling out before she could stop them. "I didn't know how to be the mother you needed. I didn't know how to be anything other than what I thought I was supposed to be." Her voice cracked, and for the first time, I saw her as a woman instead of just my mother, a woman who had struggled with her own insecurities, her own fears, her own failures. Maybe, in some way, I had always been angry at her for not being the perfect mother, but maybe she had been angry at herself for not being able to be what she thought I needed. "I'm sorry," she whispered, and I heard the sincerity in her voice, even if I wasn't ready to forgive her yet. "I know you are," I said softly, "but sorry isn't enough, Mum. It's just a start. We have to do the hard work now. We have to rebuild what was broken." It felt like the air was clearing, just a little, like the fog was starting to lift, even though the road ahead still seemed impossibly long. Mum nodded, but she didn't speak. She didn't need to. We both knew the truth now, and maybe that was enough for today. The car ride home was quiet. Emily didn't push for conversation, and I didn't try to make small talk. There was too much going on inside my head to focus on anything else. I stared out the window, watching the world pass by in a blur of fading daylight and streetlights. I could still feel Mum's words hanging in the air, heavy and unresolved. She was sorry, and maybe that was a start. But it didn't change everything that had come before. It didn't change the years of neglect, the feeling of being invisible in my own home. It didn't fix the gaping hole that had formed between us, one that had only grown wider with each year. But now, something had shifted. There was a crack in the wall, and maybe, just maybe, it could be repaired. It wouldn't happen overnight. I knew that. But for the first time, I felt like there was a chance to rebuild, to move forward. Emily broke the silence, her voice soft but steady. "How are you feeling?" I didn't know how to answer that. I was feeling everything and nothing all at once. Relief, anger, confusion, sadness. I didn't have the clarity I thought I would have by now. I didn't have the answers I was hoping for. "I don't know," I said, my voice thick. "It's like a weight's been lifted, but it's still there, you know? It's not like everything's fixed. It's just different now." Emily nodded, understanding. "It's going to take time, but you don't have to do it." Alone, you know? You've got me. I gave her a small, appreciative smile, but it didn't reach my eyes. She was right. I didn't have to face this alone. I had her, and I had myself. For the first time in a long time, I realized I had been holding on to something unhealthy, something that didn't serve me anymore. And now, I could let it go. As we turned onto my street, I saw the lights from my house in the distance. I could feel the tension in my chest rise again, but it wasn't the same as before. It was different now. It wasn't fear or dread, but something else. Something that felt like the beginning of something new. I didn't know what the future held for me and Mom. I didn't know if we would ever have the kind of relationship I had always dreamed of. But for the first time, I believed it was possible. I believed that maybe we could move beyond the hurt. Maybe we could heal. Emily parked the car, and we sat there for a moment, the engine still running. I wasn't sure if I was ready to go inside yet. The house felt different now, like it had been turned upside down in some strange way. But I knew I had to face it. I had to face everything. With a deep breath, I turned to Emily. Thanks for being here. For everything. She smiled softly, her eyes full of understanding. You don't have to thank me. I'm always here. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I didn't need to say more. The truth was, Emily had been the one constant in my life. She had shown me what it meant to be truly loved and cared for. And now, maybe I could finally start giving that love to myself. And hopefully, to Mom, too. The house felt quieter than usual when I walked in. There was no music playing, no television blaring. It was just the soft hum of the refrigerator and the occasional creak of the floorboards beneath my feet. Mom was in the kitchen, sitting at the table with a cup of tea, her hands wrapped tightly around the mug like it was the only thing keeping her steady. She didn't look up when I entered, but I could feel her awareness. It was like she was waiting for me to speak, waiting for me to say something, anything. But I didn't know where to begin. I set my bag down on the counter and stood there for a moment, trying to collect my thoughts. The silence stretched between us, heavy and awkward. It wasn't like the silence I had grown used to, the one that was filled with resentment and unspoken words. No, this silence was different. It felt fragile, like it could shatter if I said the wrong thing. Mom finally looked up, her eyes tired but searching. I didn't expect you to put something like that on social media, she said softly, her voice almost apologetic. I wasn't prepared for it. I took a deep breath, walking over to the table and sitting down across from her. I know you weren't, but I meant it. Everything I said about Carol, she's been more of a mother to me than you've ever been. Her face faltered for a moment, like I had struck her, and I immediately regretted my bluntness. But the words were out, and I couldn't take them back. I couldn't pretend that I hadn't been hurt for so long. It wasn't just about the post, it was about everything that had come before it. I didn't mean to hurt you, she said, her voice breaking a little. I don't know how to explain it. I was never good at, well, being a mom. I didn't know what to do, how to be what you needed. I still don't. Her admission hit me like a wave, crashing over me with a mixture of anger, sympathy, and disbelief. I had never heard her say anything like that before. All these years, I had assumed it was me, something wrong with me, that I wasn't worth the effort, that I wasn't enough. But now, hearing her say she didn't know how to be a mother, it was like a light had been turned on. I had never considered that maybe it wasn't just me she had failed. Maybe she had failed herself, too. I know you tried, I said slowly, my voice trembling slightly. But trying isn't always enough. There's a difference between trying and showing up. I needed you to show up, and you didn't. She looked down at her hands, nodding, slowly, her lips pressed together as though she couldn't find the words. I could feel the walls she had built around herself, the ones she had erected to protect her from facing the truth. But it was all crumbling now, and I wasn't sure if I was ready for what that meant. I've tried to be better, she whispered, barely audible. I really have, but sometimes I don't know if it's too late. I didn't know how to respond to that. Was it too late? Could we fix this? Could I forgive her for all the years of distance and coldness? Could I give her the chance she was asking for? I don't know, I said honestly. I don't know if it's too late, but I want to try. I don't want to keep holding on to this anger, Mom. I'm tired of it. I want something different for us. For me. She wiped at her eyes, a tear escaping before she could stop it. Me too. I want that too. We sat there in silence for a while longer, but this time, it wasn't the uncomfortable silence of before. It was quieter, more peaceful, like we were both finally facing the truth. The truth about us, about what we had been through, and what we still had a chance to rebuild. The next few days were a blur of emotions and half-spoken words. Mom and I had reached an understanding, but it didn't feel like everything had been said. It was as if the surface had been scratched, but the deep parts of our relationship still needed work. But it was a start, at least. I spent a lot of time thinking about what I wanted to do next, not just with Mom, but with myself. I had put so much energy into trying to fix things, trying to make peace, that I hadn't stopped to consider if I was even okay with who I was, let alone the relationship we had. I had let the resentment build up for so long that I couldn't even remember when it had started, only that it was there, lurking beneath the surface. The weekend came, and I found myself at Carol's house, sitting on the couch with a cup of tea, just like I had done so many times before. But this time, it felt different. There was a heaviness in the air that wasn't there before. I wasn't sure if it was me carrying it, or if it was something that had always been there, just waiting to be acknowledged. Carol looked at me over her cup, her eyes searching, as if she could tell that something was off. "You okay?" she asked, her voice gentle, like she was giving me space to open up if I wanted to. I hesitated before nodding. "I'm trying to be," I said, my voice cracking slightly. "I'm trying to figure out what I need, what I want. I don't know if I've ever really known." She set her cup down and leaned forward, her gaze soft but direct. "You're allowed to figure that out. You don't have to have it all figured out right now. Sometimes the journey is more important than the destination." Her words hit me harder than I expected. I'd always looked to her for guidance, for comfort, but I'd never really stopped to consider that she too was human. She wasn't perfect, and she didn't have all the answers. But what she gave me without question was a kind of love that I hadn't even realized I was missing. "I think I'm just scared," I admitted, my voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know what it means to let go of the past. Of all. The hurt? I don't know what it means to rebuild something from nothing." Carol smiled, her eyes warm. "You don't have to rebuild it all at once. You take it one step at a time. It's about allowing yourself to be vulnerable enough to admit that you need help, to admit that you can't do it all on your own." I let out a long breath, feeling the weight on my shoulders lighten just a little. It's hard, but I think I'm starting to understand what I need to do. The conversation drifted into other topics, but the truth of what Carol had said stayed with me. I didn't have all the answers, and maybe I never would. But that didn't mean I couldn't start somewhere. Start with a decision to let go of the past and move forward. It wasn't going to be easy, and I knew there would be bumps along the way. But for the first time in a long time, I felt like I had the strength to try. As I left her house later that day, I felt a sense of calm that I hadn't felt in years. The past still lingered in the corners of my mind, but it didn't have the same hold on me. I wasn't sure what the future held, but I was ready to face it. When I got home, Mom was sitting on the couch, staring at the television without really watching it. She looked up when I walked in, and for a moment, neither of us said anything. Then, finally, I spoke. "I think I need some time," I said quietly. "Not just for us, but for me, to figure out what I want, what I need." Mom nodded, her face softening. "I understand. Take all the time you need. I'll be here when you're ready." It wasn't a perfect resolution, but it was a step towards something better, something real. The next few weeks felt like I was walking in a haze, I spent a lot of time in my own head, trying to piece together the fragments of my life and what I wanted to do with them. Mom and I didn't have any major confrontations, but the silence between us was heavy, loaded with things unsaid. It wasn't awkward, but it wasn't comfortable either. We were both trying to figure out how to exist in this new space we had created. I spent more time with Carol. I needed that. Someone who had been there for me without judgment, without the complicated history that seemed to always follow me with Mom. Carol never pressured me to talk about anything I wasn't ready to. She was content to sit in silence or chat about things that didn't matter, as if those moments could give me the strength to face the harder ones. I had been avoiding social media since the whole debacle, but I knew I couldn't hide from it forever. One evening, after a long day of indecision, I sat down and opened the app. The moment I saw it, the photo of Mom smiling, holding a bouquet of flowers on Mother's Day, I felt a tightness in my chest. I had known it was coming, but seeing it there, right in front of me, felt like I was being asked to choose between two worlds. I had been honest in my post about Carol, about the love and support she'd given me when I couldn't find it elsewhere. But I hadn't expected this. I hadn't expected Mom to feel betrayed, as if I had erased her entirely from my life. The words in my inbox were a reminder of just how deep the hurt ran, how deep the cracks in our relationship were. The messages from family members, friends, even acquaintances all echoed the same sentiment. Why wasn't Mom the one I celebrated? I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't know how to explain it without reopening old wounds, without rehashing everything that had led to this point. All I could do was stare at the screen, the words blurring before my eyes. I didn't feel guilty. I wasn't sure I should, but I did. I felt something gnawing at me, a familiar sense of dread that came with knowing things would never go back to the way they were. I didn't reply to any of the messages. I didn't need to. They weren't asking me questions. They were accusations, judgment wrapped in concern, but none of them had lived my life. None of them knew the weight of the years I had spent feeling invisible, unloved. None of them had seen how hard it had been to keep my head above water while trying to maintain some semblance of a relationship with a mother who could never see me as more than an extension of herself. The decision I had made to post about Carol wasn't a rejection of Mom. It was a declaration of what I needed, of where I had found the love and acceptance I had been craving. It wasn't a perfect solution, and I wasn't sure how to explain that to anyone. But the truth was, it felt right in a way that nothing had in a long time. I closed the app and set my phone down. The silence in my room felt deafening, as if the weight of everything had come crashing down all at once. But underneath that, there was a flicker of something else. Hope. Hope that I could continue moving forward, even if it meant leaving some things and some people behind. It was inevitable, I suppose. Everything had been building to this moment, and it finally arrived one crisp Saturday afternoon, a few weeks after I had posted my tribute to Carol. Mom called me, her voice tentative but firm. "Can we talk?" she asked. I could hear the weight of her words hanging in the air. I didn't want to. I wasn't sure if I was ready, but I couldn't avoid it forever. We had to address this, or it would fester and ruin what little connection we still had. "Sure," I said, my voice steadier. Then I felt. "Come over." When she arrived, she was holding a small box. I didn't know what to expect. Anger, tears, accusations, but instead she just seemed tired. Tired of pretending everything was fine, tired of the distance, tired of the silence. We sat down, the box between us like a barrier. "I know. You're upset," Mom started, her eyes avoiding mine. "And I get it. I know I haven't been the mother you needed me to be, but this posting about Carol, it felt like you were choosing her over me." I wanted to interrupt, to defend myself, but I knew better. This wasn't about being right. It was about understanding. "Mom," I said quietly, "I didn't post that to hurt you. I did it because I wanted to celebrate someone who's been there for me in ways I never got from you. And I'm not saying you haven't tried, but I was always left wanting more." The silence between us grew. I could see the hurt in her eyes, but also something else. Acceptance, maybe. I don't know how to be the mother you want me to be, she admitted, her voice breaking slightly. But I'm trying. I really am. Can you give me a chance? I looked at her, the woman who had given me life but never really shown me how to live it. For the first time in a long while, I didn't feel anger. I didn't feel resentment. I just felt tired. I was tired of carrying the weight of our relationship alone, tired of hoping for something that had never come. I took a deep breath. I don't need you to be perfect, Mom. I just need you to be real. I need you to see me, and not just who you want me to be. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I'm sorry. I don't know how to do that, but I'll try. For you. Wasn't a promise of everything magically being fixed. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, but it was a start. A real one. I reached over and took the box from her. She had wrapped it carefully, as if it were something delicate, fragile. I opened it slowly. Inside was a framed photo of us when I was little, both of us laughing, smiling like we were the happiest people in the world. I thought this might help, Mum said, her voice thick with emotion. Maybe we can remember how it used to be before everything got complicated. I stared at the photo, the memory it held, and something inside me shifted. The past couldn't be undone. The wounds couldn't be erased. But this moment, this small, imperfect moment, was a beginning. And sometimes, beginnings were all you needed. I smiled faintly. Thanks, Mum. She smiled back, a little uncertain, but real. We'll get there. I nodded, feeling the weight of her words settle over me, lighter than before. Maybe we wouldn't fix everything. Maybe we would never be what we once were, but we were still here, and that was enough for now.